I am working on an MFA in Poetry and Translation, and I'm working on a book by an Israeli lesbian writer named Shez. The book came out in the late 90s. It was the first really fully openly lesbian poetry book published in Israel. She's still writing. She's done novels and plays, and she Skypes with me, which is marvelous to sort of have that poetic back and forth. So I want to do 3 short pieces by hers and then one of my own. She has a huge range of voice. Really funny pieces, sexy pieces, horrible relationship. Her poems are good, the relationships are horrible. She writes a lot about being an incest survivor in pieces that are just cracking wide open to read. And she's very funny at other times. And I actually want to start with one that's very funny because of where we are and what nameless holiday we're very close to. And this is one that, she wrote this as a Jewish lesbian in Israel, and I'm trying to translate it into a country that's an overwhelmingly Christian culture. And when I read the first line of the poem, I thought, that's not what she said. But it is. Only I know what's in Jesus' underwear. Only I know what's in Jesus' underwear. I was with him last night and yesterday. I did not laugh. I was not surprised when I lowered his underwear. I sucked, licked, I slid in, pushed, blew hard, breathed. Astounded, I shouted, "Woman, bestow upon me your beauty, your compassion, your charity. Spray upon me your madness, your tenderness, your boom." And this is one of the love poems, and if you will pardon the fact that my Hebrew sounds a lot like I grew up in Southern Illinois, because I did, but I want to give you a sense of how her language sounds here. And speaking Hebrew makes me really nervous, but... ואפילו לא יהיה יותר, ואפילו לא יהיה יותר, גופה בגופי, לנסות לנחש, מה שלה, מה שלי, אלייך. מוות מתוק שלי, אני פונה. אני שפה, אני עולה, אולי כמו אלה, אולי כמו עולה, אולי כמו הייתי, בתך האהובה. And if this will be no more, and if this will be no more, her body with my body, trying to divine what is hers, what is mine. To you, my sweet death, I turn. I float, I rise up, perhaps like a goddess, perhaps like a burnt offering, perhaps like I was your daughter, beloved. And her biological father was named Abraham. And in this book, she is constantly telling and retelling the story of Abraham. Sometimes her mother is Abraham sacrificing her. Sometimes there's an angry male god. Sometimes there's a rescuing male god, a female god. She keeps retelling it, and sometimes I get to the poem and it's just made me breathless. So this is one of those poems where she's retelling the relationship between Abraham and God. And here she uses Avram, so Abraham's name before he sort of got the H and became of God. It was in the power of God. It was in the power of God to keep us in the Garden of Eden. God was then like a wind, pleasant even in the Hamsin days. It was in his power to pacify our wanting to know, to rub our cheeks with his soft cheek. It was his intention to swing us in the hammock of his warm embrace forever. It was his design to bind us to his breast. It was on his thin lips, the still, small voice, so lonely when we were driven away from Eden. God remained there by himself, his breast dripping useless milk. God so loved us, his daughters. It was in the dreams and the thoughts of Avram that God learned, in the music of his strange flute on the day of the Hamsin that God fainted, and Avram banished the abandoned girls. So she has 80-some poems in the book, so hopefully I'll have it out sometime in the next couple of years, and we can all meet Shez only about 12 years after she wrote the poems. So I want to close with just one of my own poems, which is called Briar Rose. And it helps if you remember that Briar Rose is the same story Disney gave us as Sleeping Beauty. So get that story in your mind. Briar Rose. A curse invoked against the Princess Rose, a curse of prick, of sleep, of bramble deep, but nothing happened. Until near first blood, this arose, the curse embodied. Exiled to a wild, walled-in place, I shed my corset binding only space to ride on my back in the beckoning weeds. Now, no need to disguise my delight in it, my own first cock. At first daybreak, I crowed, I will not be how I was born. Those who cut through a century of change, how will they find me grown? Scourge or wonder, bearded or shorn, not sleeping, not enchanted, not beguiled, not a rose, but a briar's barbed body, awakened, demanding, beautiful, reviled.